Welcome, and thank you for considering planting a tree to help beautify Seattle and keep our city cool. Trees can provide us with so many benefits, including shading our homes to reduce cooling costs, managing stormwater runoff, providing habitats for wildlife, and giving us clean air to breathe. To ensure each tree we plant is able to thrive and survive, it is important to consider your planting environment and each tree's individual needs. This Right Tree, Right Place training is a great first step in ensuring that your tree will have room to live a long and happy life. The next step in selecting a tree is to decide whether you want it to be planted in your yard or the planting strip, which is the space between the street and the sidewalk. Let's take a look at planting yard trees first. If you want to plant in your yard, you will probably have lots of options. Keep in mind that planting the largest tree possible for your space will provide the maximum benefit. Plus, that will save some of the smaller trees we have available for folks who aren't able to accommodate larger trees. There are a few additional things you will want to keep in mind when selecting the best site in your yard for your tree. You will want to make sure your tree is sited at least 5 feet from water, sewer, gas, and other utility lines. You will also want to plant your tree 10 to 15 feet from fences and at least 15 feet from any structures such as your house, shed, or deck. In addition to all of the benefits of yard trees, street trees can help to calm traffic and provide a beauty for all of your neighbors to enjoy. If you'd like to plant a tree in the planting strip, there are some things to consider. As a reminder, the planting strip is the space between the sidewalk and the street. Trees planted here need special considerations and thought before planting. If you want to plant your tree in an unimproved right-of-way, such as a street end or a decommissioned alley, you'll want to follow these same guidelines. While outside, standing in the planting strip, look up and see if there are any power lines overhead. If you notice the power lines that look like this, that means you have high voltage lines overhead and need to choose a power line friendly tree. While the 3 lines pictured here are pretty typical, you might have more or fewer high voltage lines on your street. It's helpful to note that high voltage lines are usually 35 feet off the ground. All other overhead wires do not need to be taken into consideration when planting trees. The Trees for Neighborhoods program always has a number of power line friendly trees available each application cycle. The next thing to consider is the width of your planting strip. You can easily measure the width of your planting strip with a measuring tape or estimate it by pacing it with your feet. The average size foot is 10 inches long, the perfect tool to use. Let's turn it over to Olivia, who will give us a demonstration of how she measures a planting strip.
Hi all, I'm going to show you how to measure your planting strip by pacing it out with your feet. Now I know my feet are about 10 inches long, so if I just leave about 2 inches between my steps, I'm going to be able to measure the width of my planting strip. Starting from the edge of the sidewalk, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 paces. That means my planting strip is about 4 feet wide. And you'll just want to make sure that you're measuring to the inside of the curb as opposed to the outside of it to get the correct measurement.
Now, what do these measurements mean? If your planting strip is 1 to 4 feet wide, your planting strip won't be able to fit any of the trees that we offer. If your planting strip is between 4 and 5 feet, you can plant a tree if you install a root barrier. Root barriers help to prevent a tree's roots from disturbing the sidewalk. If your planting strip is 5 feet or greater, you can consult our program brochure to determine which trees will fit in your strip. Under each tree, we list its minimum planting strip width. Remember, it's important to choose the largest tree possible that will fit in your space. The next thing to consider is the other objects in your planting strip. Trees must be planted 5 feet from water, sewer, gas, and other utility lines. If you call 811, they can help you with determining where these lines are located in your planting strip. If you are participating in Trees for Neighborhoods, we call 811 for you. Trees must also be planted 5 feet from fire hydrants and 7.5 feet from driveways, which helps maintain driver visibility and keeps pedestrians safe. Trees should also be planted 10 feet from all utility poles, 20 feet from all light poles, and to ensure that your new tree has enough room to thrive, they should also be planted 20 feet from the canopy edge of any existing trees in the planting strip or on your property. If your house is on a corner property, there is another measurement to take into account. Trees must be planted 30 feet from intersections, and there is a special way we measure that. Starting in the planting strip you want to plant in, walk towards the corner until you reach the end of the sidewalk and are walking in the street. Find the point where the two sidewalks would meet if they did not become a rounded corner. This is your starting location. It will be in the street, and sometimes there is a manhole or sewer cover in this location. Usually, there will be a seam in the pavement at this point. Now, turn around and start measuring from that point back towards the planting strip you wish to put a new tree in. The tree must be located 30 feet away from that point. Planting 30 feet from the intersection helps to ensure good visibility in the intersection and keeps pedestrians safe. Now, Olivia is going to show us how she measures 30 feet from the intersection.
Hi all, I'm going to show you how to measure 30 feet from an intersection. Let's pretend that this is my house and I want to plant a tree in this planting strip. First things first, I'm going to follow the curb out to the point in the street where it would meet the perpendicular curb if it didn't become a rounded corner. As you can see, there's a manhole cover here. Sometimes there will also be a seam in the pavement. So I know my stride is about 3 feet long, and if I'm measuring 30 feet from this point, I'll do about 10 strides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this point is 30 feet from the intersection, and I am okay to plant a tree here.
If you would like to plant multiple new trees, consult the tree guide to ensure you have adequate room between them based on their mature widths. Trees that grow to be 20 feet wide should be spaced 20 feet apart. Trees that grow to be 30 feet wide should be spaced 30 feet apart. Yet another factor to consider is your soil. If you have sandy, well-draining soil, choose a tree that does well in that environment. If you have clay soil, be sure to plant a tree that will be successful in that soil type. Also be sure to note your exposure. Is your planting strip exposed to the sun and in a very hot location for most of the year? You may want to choose a drought-tolerant tree. Is your location shaded and only receiving partial sun? Perhaps you can choose a tree adapted for that growing environment. All of our trees have recommended environments listed on the tree guide. You may be wondering why you don't see a lot of native trees in our selections. Unfortunately, our urban environment is much harsher than a forest, and many native species simply can't thrive or even survive. All of our trees were selected to perform well in tough urban landscapes to provide shade, water filtration, erosion control, and beauty for generations to come. Now let's put everything we just learned to use and try out some examples using our 2023 trees. Nina wants to plant a tree in her planting strip. Let's see what trees will fit in her space. First, Nina's going to take a look and see if she has any high voltage wires above her planting strip. Nina spots the telltale insulator on top of a utility pole, so she'll need to go with one of our power line friendly options. Nina measured her planting strip and it is 6 feet wide, so all of these options will work for her. She also called 811 and there are no utility lines in her planting strip. Finally, Nina is going to measure the length of her planting strip to see how many trees she can fit. Her planting strip is 25 feet in length. First, she will measure 7 feet from each of the driveways that border her planting strip. That gives her a planting area of 11 feet. Since their spread at maturity is 10 feet, Nina could fit 2 Persian Spire Perodia in her planting strip. Andrew is looking to plant a tree in the planting strip outside his business and doesn't have any high voltage wires overhead. When he measured his planting strip, it was 10 feet wide. Andrew has lots of options. To provide the maximum benefit to his street, Andrew is going to opt for one of the larger trees we have on offer. He won't be able to plant the Jubilee Alaska Yellow Cedar or the Shore Pine since those require 12-foot planting strips. Taking into account his sewer line and the neighbor's driveway, Andrew only has room for one tree. Since he wants to maximize shade during our warm summer months, he is going to opt for either a decaf Kentucky coffee tree or a European beech, since they have the largest spread at maturity. Let's try one more example. Kat wants to plant a tree in her yard. Though she really loves magnolias, Kat also wants to maximize shade and privacy. Plus, that will help to save some of the power line friendly trees for those with smaller planting areas. Kat found the perfect spot for her Aptos Blue Coastal Redwood, 15 feet away from all structures and 5 feet away from all of her utilities. Thank you so much for joining us for this training. Don't forget to tell your friends about the Trees for Neighborhoods program, and happy planting!